This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho, there's Jeff Cutastrophe. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this date. And on this day, October 24th, in the year 1992, 30 years ago, the Toronto Blue Jays made history of becoming the first Canadian team to win the World Series. I know I touched about the Joe Carter home run last year at this time, but I also got to say that we got to do the event that brought it through, the 92 World Series. So I know as a Blue Jay fan, I'm going to be probably speaking like an hour's length about the Blue Jays, but no, I can't. So anyhow, the Blue Jays were an expansion franchise in 1977 that almost had the Giants. The Giants almost moved from San Fran to Toronto, but thankfully for San Francisco, there was a local owner who wanted to buy the team. However, spurned by that, the commissioner said that American League commissioner said they needed two new teams. So Seattle, because they were pissed off that they left for Milwaukee, the Seattle Pilots left for Milwaukee just days before the 1970 season started, had antitrust suits. And kind of like what Kansas City did after losing the A's, they went to court and all that, and they got a baseball team. Rumors were circulating that Washington was going to be the second American League team. They didn't want to interleague yet. But thanks to the efforts of Ewing Kauffman, the Royals owner, whose wife Muriel was from Toronto and had known the baseball game that well, he pushed for Toronto to have that second spot, and they did. So the Blue Jays played their first ever game and won 9-5 in 1977. The Blue Jays weren't really that good, but by 1983 they changed the culture from a losing expansion culture to a you're close, but you're not there yet. Blue Jays for a month and a bit were the AL East leaders in '83, but then they choked in a playoff series in a series in Baltimore and Detroit in August, and that just started to fall. Blue Jays won 89 games in '84, which was great, but they were 15 games behind the Tigers, who went on to win the World Series. '85, the Blue Jays won 99 games out of 161. If they played game number 162, maybe they got to the century mark, which was amazing. But anyway, the Blue Jays won 99 games, and it looked like they were going to be heavy favorites to represent the American League in the World Series. After all, they had home field against the Royals, and were up 3-1, which is almost guaranteed it. But unfortunately, in the LCS era, from 1969 to 1984, it was best of 5, and then in '85, I guess, to help the Cubs out, in a sense, because of the Cubs choking into that series lead, they made it best of 7. So that meant that the Jays had to win one more game. And it didn't come, even though they had 2 games on home turf. Jim Sundberg's wind-aided triple was the backbone, was the straw that broke the back. The Blue Jays went back to respectability, but not super good. '87, they had that career-defining choke when they lost all 7 games. They lost 7 games, and 4 of them were to Detroit. Of course, in painful fashion, Tom Henke giving up a tying home run to Matt Noakes. In another game, they just didn't hit the ball. And then one game, Manny Lee let a ball go through his legs. And Tigers scored the winning run in extras. And then Frank Tanana just ruined the Blue Jays in the last game. Blue Jays were close in '88, but in '89, they won the AL East. They were actually 10 back of Baltimore at one point, but charged thanks to Cito Gaston's managerial style and the opening of the Skydome. So the Jays won that series, but Oakland crushed them in 5 games thanks to Ricky Henderson. And not that I forget Jose Canseco's moonshot. And then in 1990, they were close. The last day of the season, they had a chance to tie Boston. Unfortunately, Boston won on a controversial Bernansky sliding catch to beat the White Sox and win the East. It also didn't help that the Jays lost to Baltimore on the final day as well. In '91, the Blue Jays pulled 4 million fans, and they got to the ALCS against the Twins, and surprisingly were taken down in 5. It didn't help that Joe Carter was hurt. So the '92 Blue Jays were just trying to make things happen. The Jays made some noise getting Dave Winfield, who was a veteran hitter who was pretty good, and all that. The Blue Jays also made some key moves. Pat Borders was getting more of a catching role John Olerud was getting more time at first base. Robbie Alomar was coming into his own after the Jays fleeced him from the Padres in 1990. Kelly Gruber was getting his wings at third base. Shortstop was kind of a question mark because no Tony Fernandez because he got dealt to the Padres in the Alomar deal. They went through with Eddie Sosky and I think Manny Lee, if memory serves me right. And in the outfield had Candy Maldonado, Devon White, and Dave Winfield and Joe Carter. The pitching staff was okay. I mean, Dave Stieb, unfortunately, was hurt in the 92 season, so he didn't really take part in the Blue Jays run. They picked up Jack Morris from the Twins, which was shocking. Because why would Morris pitch 1 year for his hometown Twins and then leave for free agency? I just don't get it. And he was the World Series MVP, for God's sake. Twins should have done better. Al Leiter was coming well out of the bullpen. Tom Hankey and Dwayne Ward were the 1-2 bullpen work. David Wells was a spot starter. Juan Guzman was coming into his own. Todd Steinmeier was coming into his own. And Hankin was not there yet. But the Jays made a shocking move in 92, picking up David Cone for the want of a minor leaguer who went on to be a good second baseman for the Giants, especially, by the name of Jeff Kent. Oh well, it was worth it. So the 92 Blue Jays had some struggles. However, they did win the AL East, albeit on the second last day of the season. That's the Tigers. But the Jays got to the ALCS where they would meet their old rivals, the Oakland A's. Oakland had not really missed a step. Sure, they didn't win the 91 and AL West, but it didn't matter. I mean, they've won. They had won 4 of the last 5 AL West titles. So, game 1 was in Toronto. Jack Morris was pitching, becoming the first Blue Jay to hit 20 wins in the regular season. And unfortunately for him, he gave up a late home run to, what was that? I would like to say Carney Lansford, but that's not right. I would like to say Ruben Sierra, too, but maybe it was Ruben Sierra? I can't remember who gave up that home run to. But it didn't matter, as the Blue Jays lost 4-3 in Game 1 of the ALCS, and people were like, well, that was screwed. However, the Jays came back with a spirited Game 2 win of Mike Moore. Game 3, the Jays came through and did well. Game 4 was the turning point, as the Jays were down 6-1 to the A's, and Dennis Eckersley came in. Well, yeah, he gave up a few runs in the 8th inning, but made it 6-3. But after a big strikeout, he pumped his fist and put it at the Jays' dugout, allegedly. The Jays would use this as a rallying cry and tied the game thanks to Roberto Alomar's 2-run home run at 2 strikes. And Eckersley was pissed. The Jays would win it in the 11th inning, and they were up 3 games to 1. All they needed to do was win 1 game. And thinking 3-1, oh God, this better not be like 85. It wasn't like 85. They did lose Game 5, but the good news is they were back home for Game 6 and 7. But that was eerily similar to 85. But this time, the Jays finished the job, winning 9-2, and it was easy. The Blue Jays clinched on October 14th. However, the same day, down in Atlanta, the Braves would face the Pirates in Game 7 of the NLCS. So the Jays would instantly know who their opponent would be. They didn't have to wait an extra day. Braves and Pirates played a very hard-paced back-and-forth series that went to Game 7. Pittsburgh was up 2-0. Stan Belinda, a decent closer, was then coming into the bullpen, and unfortunately, a ground ball to Jose Lind was bobbled. Jose Lind was a Gold Glover, or playing Gold Glove caliber. It ended up being a 2-1 game when Francisco Cabrera, who was let go by the Blue Jays, came up to the plate, and he lashed a single, scoring David Justice and Sid Bream, which was shocking because Sid Bream was not the fastest runner in the world. And Barry Bonds, yes, he was playing left field for Pittsburgh at the time, couldn't throw him out. And the Braves were going to the World Series. So it would be Blue Jays Braves. The Braves trying to win the World Series after losing in 91 to the Twins. Game 1 saw the Braves score 3 in the 6th inning. And Glavine beat Morris. Jack Morris thought he could do something about it. But no, it just didn't happen. All that. The first Canadian team to make a World Series game, and they lost, thanks to David Berryhill's home run. Poor Jack Morris. He couldn't do it. But anyway, yeah. In a 19-inning scoreless streak, which was snapped. The Blue Jays in Game 2 looked like they were dead meat. Jeff Reardon was a decent closer, who the Braves got from the Bull Sox, if memory serves me right. Anyway, before the game, there was a faux pas by the U.S. Marine Corps. They flew the flag of Canada upside down. Leave points up. The Corps would actually apologize for the error and wanted to carry the flag properly prior to Game 3, which actually got a lot of Canadian fans not so miffed. However, Tom Cochrane botched the anthem. The line of from far and wide, "Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee." He said, "Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee." He couldn't sing it. So anyway, David Cone would get on the mound for the Blue Jays and stifle the Braves, but the Braves took a lead. It was 4-3 Braves in the ninth when Ed Sprague, coming off the bench because Kelly Gruber was the third baseman, smoked a pitch from Reardon to the left field wall. And it was just shocking and all that. How Ed Sprague did his job. The score was 5-4. The Blue Jays won. Game 3 was the first game in Canada. Of course, the color guard made amends, and the RCMP flew the flag of the United States. The fans were happy. They gave him a standing ovation. And of course, Game 3 was the big part. That was when Devon White, in the fourth inning, caught a fly from David Justice and make the catch. Unfortunately, Deion Sanders and Terry Pendleton both crossed paths, and Pendleton crossed in front. And by rule, because Deion was the lead runner, Pendleton was out. Kelly Gruber got the ball and swiped Deion Sanders' heel, thinking he got him, but no. The umpire called him safe. It was pathetic. Bob Davidson botched it. The TV replays said that he was right. Contact was made. It was a good game, but in the bottom of the ninth, Candy Maldonado threw a good hit over the drawn-in outfield, bouncing the ball. Roberto Alomar tomahawk chopped his way home, and the Blue Jays won 3-2. Dwayne Ward was the winner, Steve Avery the loser. In Game 4, the Blue Jays used a key performance by Jimmy Key, pun intended, I guess, to take down Tom Hankey. All that. So, anyway, he did his job for the Blue Jays. This would be the last game Jimmy Key would throw as a Blue Jay. I mean, Jimmy Key was the longest tenured Blue Jay. He was there since 1984. So he did his job, and the Blue Jays were up 3-1. Blue Jays were prepared to celebrate on home turf, but the Braves had other ideas. Lonnie Smith, who had played in the 1980, 82, 85, and 91 World Series. This was his 5th World Series. Smacked a home run, a grand slam off of Jack Morris. And John Smoltz was the hero, and the Braves forced Game 6. So the Blue Jays were in dire straits. They needed to do something. Steve Avery would face David Cone. And the Jays put Dave Winfield in right field and Joe Carter at first base instead of Olerud. The Blue Jays would score first. Devon White got to third base, and Joe Carter hit a RBI single to score Devo. The Braves would score in the third inning as Terry Pendleton had a sac fly and scored Deion Sanders. Kenny Maldonado hit a home run in the fourth to make it 2-1. And that was the score till the bottom of the ninth. Tom Henke had a chance to end this thing. But Otis Nixon came to the plate. He knew that he needed a hit. He lined a single to left field. Maldonado tried to throw the ball to the plate, but he overthrew everybody. Fortunately, though, that was just the one run. Ron Gant had a chance to win the game with a hit, but he flew out to end the inning. The 10th, Charlie Liebrandt would face the lineup. And nothing happened. Henke pitched the 10th. He got Pendleton to ground out, but then Jimmy Key came in to face Justice and Breen, which Key did. On to the 11th. Liebrandt retired Jimmy Key, who was batting for himself, and then Devon White came to the plate. However, a hit by pitch got White to first base. Alomar singled. It was first and second with Winfield. With the second out. Joe Carter had a chance to get a big hit, and he flew out. So with 2 outs, it was up to Dave Winfield now. He was struggling in the World Series. He didn't do well in the 81 World Series, but on the 6th at bat, he connected with a line drive down the left field line. White scored from second, and when the ball bounced off the left field area and scooted past Ron Gant, that gave a chance for Alomar to score. It was 4-2, and the Blue Jays did it. It was Winfield's first career extra base hit in the World Series, making it 4-2. Anyway, Key would come up to would still be out there. Blauser singled. Barry Hill looked like he would ground out in double play, but the ball took a hop and took Alfredo Griffin by surprise, who was in for Manny Lee. Blauser got to third base, and then John Smoltz actually was made to pinch run, which is unusual for a pitcher. Rafael Belliard, who replaced Lemke in second base, did their job. Well, he sacrificed, and with 1 out, the time runs were in scoring position, so his second and third went out. Brian Hunter pinch hit. He grounded out to Carter. Blauser scored, though. It was 4-3, and Smoltz moved up to third base. There were a runner on third, 2 outs, and Otis Nixon bunting. Gaston wasn't sure, because he figured that Nixon was going to drag bunt. So Gaston decided to put Mike Timlin to the mound. It actually worked out. And Nixon did bunt, but Timlin knew what was coming and threw the ball to first, and the Blue Jays would win. If I can remember Sean McDonough's call. Nixon bunts Timlin over the first base. And for the first time in history, the World Series flag will fly north of the border. The Toronto Blue Jays are your champions in 1992. It did it. Cecil Gaston became the first African-American manager to win the World Series. And he got it. Toronto was happy. They got a title. This was amazing and all that. So the Blue Jays did their job. Cheek and Jerry Horvath, the Tavacherry crew for Toronto, broadcast the radio innings. Now, if you read Tom Cheek's book about the first 16 years of the Blue Jays, it's amazing. I think I still have it. I have it somewhere. I hope. Anyway, Hallworth and Cheek alternated innings, and Hallworth did the 11th inning and then gave Tom Cheek the call in the bottom of the 11th because, Tom Cheek was there from the start. But CBS's Sean McDonough, at 30 years old, you wouldn't know it by looking at him because he had his premature baldness. He was the youngest man to call all 9 innings and games of a World Series. Vin Scully and Al Michaels were actually younger when they called 55 and 72 respectively. But the rule was that for the TV networks was that there was a policy of announcers representing the participating teams calling the play-by-play alongside the main guys. However, Joe Buck, at age 27 in 1996, would break that mark. So that was huge and all that. The Nielsen ratings, of course, dropped because, it's a Canadian team. So no excuses there. But yeah, the Toronto Blue Jays of 1982 would win the World Series, bringing a title to Canada for the first time in a long time. And it was like magic. Of course, the feeling didn't last completely long for the Jays. The 92 Jays lost a lot of people. Pat Borders was named World Series MVP, but he stayed. Olerud stayed at first base. Manny Lee went to Texas. Alfredo Griffin still was around. Tony Fernandez would be traded from the Mets to the Blue Jays in June of 93 to plug up the shortstop hole. Robbie Alomar stayed at second. Kelly Gruber left for the Angels, which meant that Ed Sprague got the full-time third base job. Candy Maldonado went somewhere. I can't remember. I would say San Francisco, but that can't be right. Devon White stayed. Joe Carter stayed. He in fact nearly signed a deal with Kansas City at the 11th hour, but he decided to stay in Toronto. The pitching staff would be decimated. David Cohn would go to Kansas City. Jack Morris would get hurt and leave Toronto after 93. Tom Hankey would go to Texas. David Wells would leave and subsequently go to Detroit. David Cohn went to Kansas City. The Blue Jays were decimated. But, thankfully, Dave Winfield left from Minnesota. But, thankfully, the Blue Jays could rebuild. They got Paul Molitor from Milwaukee. They got Dave Stewart from Oakland. They got a few more bits and pieces. And, of course, Ricky Anderson at the 93 trade deadline. But, yeah, the Jays still repeated. I mean, that's just amazing how they could lose so much and then they would still be the world champs because of their young talent. Whamco, baby. Whamco. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.